Hi, very good afternoon. It's Gene from maverickstar Observatory. What I wanted to do in this video is just show a few people that are probably new to the channel and, remind others that have been, following us for some time what we actually provide here. And the reason for doing it is maybe, a few more people might want to contribute when they know that there's a bit more work going on behind the scenes. I know when we do a video on YouTube, it seems like we just cover, one topic, the magnetic North Pole. But, there really is a lot of information that we provide on the website, poleshiftnews.com. And it's well worth going over there, if you've got a keen interest as to what's going on and taking place with, the general anomalies around our Earth. So you can find on this website, all about us, why we decided to track the magnetic North Pole, how much of a rare event it is. The last time the Earth completed a completed magnetic reversal was 780,000 years ago. On average, used to repeat the reversal every 300 to 350,000 years. So clearly from that you can work out that we are 500,000 years overdue a completed magnetic reversal. The Earth has undergone some failed magnetic reversals in the past, and the last one being just at the end of the glacial period about 12,000 years ago. So, although we have completed magnetic reversals and a record of those, we have had a lot of excursions going back over the last 780,000 years. One of the questions that is contemplated here at the observatory is, why is the Earth 500,000 years or 500,000 years overdue its reversal? What has slowed down in the Earth's core that has enabled it to migrate a lot longer than what it has? But the main thing is of interest, and it must be for a lot of people that follow us, is the fact that we are at the moment currently experiencing either another failed migration or a completed migration. We are trying to work out which will be the case, but it doesn't really matter whether it's an excursion or a completed reversal, because in both scenarios the Earth's magnetosphere, which protects us, it's our primary protective field, will collapse almost to zero, and at that point more cosmic rays will be inbound and affecting our upper atmosphere. Now, over the last 30 years, I dare say a lot of you will recall what the climate was 30 years ago, and how it seemed very normal to have reliable seasons, and how much that has changed noticeably over the last 30 years. That is because the Earth's magnetic field began to shift in a way where the migrating poles doubled in their acceleration, covering more distance in the same period of time, or twice the distance in the same period of time since the 1990s. There was a dramatic uptick in the speed in which it began to migrate, indicating that we could be coming closer to the point of either an excursion or a reversal. So primarily what we do on our channel is monitor that, and we built ourselves around 4 years ago equipment to track the migration, and we do it at an alarming resolution, because a lot of the bigger organisations first of all won't own a Trimag system. We've got the only one in existence in the entire world. This piece of equipment tracks the magnetic North Pole accurately every 3 seconds. That's the resolution that we record on, and since we've had the Trimag operational, we have collected millions and millions of individual data sets, which we have not only archived on the website for you in charts, but we have archived that data in its raw format, so that we can go back, hopefully when the poles have migrated, and analyse the data, and we will be probably one of the only observatories that are tracking the migration of the magnetic North Pole with a resolution that we have, and that's why we chose to monitor it every 3 seconds, which is an incredible amount of data, as you can imagine. Every month we have around 200 to 350,000 individual data sets, which we plot on a chart for you here on the website. But there's other things that we do on the website, like cover other anomalies, and that's just what I wanted to do for the rest of the video, just go through some of the things that we cover on the website. So not only do we record the Trimag data here at the UK, as well as the magnetosphere data, we also, as you know, have a few superstars in different countries around the world monitoring magnetic intensity for us, and they relay the data back to our observatory here in the UK, and we process that data and put it on charts for you, and you can see that on maverickstar global data on the poleshiftnews.com. So let's have a look at some of the other things that we cover and talk about on this channel. So let's hit the road running with looking at Earth off at a glance. What we do every week or every other week is we take out some of the other equipment that we've got, like the oxygen atmospheric sensor, which detects using the Illuminox sensor, one of the state-of-the-art pieces of equipment that is available to anyone that is monitoring things like atmospheric oxygen. We have at our disposal here, and I don't know whether you was following us, the build on that, where we 3D printed our own case for that, and used with the Illuminox sensor and a bit of programming to get it operational. It can measure standard atmospheric oxygen, or we can actually use rods in experiments and use the plunge filter to bring in the oxygen to sample as and when we want, using that equipment on experiments. We've also got a CO2 monitor, which monitors the atmospheric CO2, and again we've got an archive of all this data going back over a long period of time, which has recently showed over the last 12 months a slight drop in CO2, and yet there has been no mention of this in any mainstream media or from any mainstream organisation. The only way you can know such things is by having the equipment. Otherwise, you are relying on information from other organisations, or you're just simply going onto websites that claim to have the equipment that are monitoring it like we do. We've got our own equipment, and we use the scientific method of sampling using bespoke equipment like the CO2 and the oxygen sensor, so that we get an accurate reading of the atmospheric oxygen, and we conduct the readings in exactly the same manner every single time we do it. It is positioned in the exact same position, at the same altitude, at the same location every time we monitor it. Now, some organisations would say, it should be done at the highest altitude, like they do in Hawaii, which is the standard observatory for CO2 monitoring. I have doubts whether that is the best way to do it. I think if you keep to the same region and you monitor it in exactly the same way, you're going to get accurate readings of CO2 like we do here at the observatory. And if there is changes which show a decline in CO2, and we've used the latest state-of-the-art equipment to monitor that, then it's got to be what it is showing us. And sometimes we would like to see it drop even more, because that would be just an egg in the face of these creeps that are ripping off taxpayers worldwide, because we know that the levels of CO2 in our atmosphere could never produce a threat in terms of global warming like is claimed, or climate change now, as they've changed it. They have slightly moved the goalpost, but the amount that is emitted by man is such a small amount, it would never affect the atmosphere in any major way or form. And us having the CO2 equipment is proof of that. Obviously, moving down the list, we've got the latest magnetic pole position. Obviously, we use the TriMag system for that. And again, you know, the silicon photo multiplier, the light detector in there, is state of the art. It is the largest silicon photo multiplier you can possibly buy on the market, and it's around 5mm by 5mm. It has something like, you know, 5,000 PMP junctions on there, which individually can and is capable of detecting a very small amount of light. And on top of that SIPM, we have a tuned piece of crystal called a cincolette, and that allows, as the muons that we are detecting through other pieces of equipment, it allows the light to travel through the cincolette, or the particle to travel through the cincolette, and as it does, it produces light, and it's the SIPM, the silicon photo multiplier, which detects that light and records it. But it has to do this by holding the frequency of the light as it passes through, because of the speed in which it travels. You know, it's almost travelling at the speed of light, and the CPU that we use in the breakout board isn't capable of, you know, instantly recognising it. So we have what is known as a peak hold using electronics, and you know, in the program it will hold as it passed through, it will recognise it and then be able to record it as a strike on the CPU that we've got. So, you know, we're using a lot of state-of-the-art technology in order to record, you know, these things. You know, we have done a remarkable job by the small amount of money that we've raised and spent it very wisely on the equipment, because to monitor, say, things like neutrons, which are much bigger particles than muons, you'd pay around £7,000 or £8,000 sterling for one of those detectors. But we were lucky enough to jump on the bandwagon of MIT in the United States and produce their free plans to build the electronics and the list of components that you'd need. And you know, they was even good enough to give you know, a description of where you could purchase them from. Like, you know, some parts come from Radio Shack, other parts come from another company. The silicon photo multipliers are not the easiest or the cheapest components to come by, because sometimes the company requires large quantities to be purchased in a single purchase, but sometimes they do have offers where they will release just one or two, and of course we snatch them up when we can. But having said that, you know, just the silicon photo multiplier comes in to us at around £120 sterling plus the packaging and postage. So, you know, we do our very best, even though that single component is probably the dearest component in the build of the muon detectors. You know, we're lucky we're not still paying £7,000 or £8,000 per unit, as we would probably have to do any other way around it. And the reason why we're searching for muons impacts at the surface level of our Earth is because we know if there are muons, then there is obviously collisions in the upper atmosphere with cosmic particles, and muons are just the byproduct and the subatomic particle of, you know, collisions that have happened up in the atmosphere. So the more strikes we get here on the surface, we know that there is more collisions up in the atmosphere. Okay, so not only do we do that, we also monitor volcanoes in eruption. Let's go and have a look at the volcano chart for you. So again, on Poleshift News, we've got live volcano maps which are updated, as you can see there, by the date, showing all the volcanoes which are actively in eruption. Those are the ones we're interested in. We're not interested in ones that are showing signs. We thought the best way to monitor volcanism was by studying the ones that were actually erupting. On average, there's 25 to 27 active and erupting volcanoes every single day, and it has been that way for the last 4 years of us monitoring volcanoes. Another thing we monitor at the website, or if you're interested in one of the most recent earthquakes, you can go over to the particular page which covers earthquakes for you. So all you need to do is type in the magnitude that you're interested in looking at, like we've got magnitude 4 here, and for the time period, and then you press submit. It will come up with all the earthquakes at that magnitude over the last week. What I like to do is have a look at the ones over 7.5 over the last week, and it will give me a good idea as to, you know, whether things are picking up with the frequency of these events happening or not. It's very easy to use, very fast, and you know, it's free service to us and of course to you guys. But you know, like everything we do here, obviously to a certain extent a lot of it is just my time, but you know, sometimes when we're building equipment and we're sending things around the world, there is obviously costs here, and obviously some of this equipment is running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So obviously all these little things, you know, do eventually mount up, but a lot of it is time, and that's really why, you know, I don't charge. I just ask people to support and help what we do, because we've got 20,000 people on this website every week visiting for the information on all these anomalies that we cover. And today I just wanted to show you exactly what we do here at this observatory, because we're unique. You know, we're not just talking like a lot of YouTube channels about these events and getting their information from, you know, mainstream organisations or articles or media. We're actually recording the data ourselves, and that is unique. You have to realise that there's not a lot of people out there which are monitoring, like we are, the magnetic North Pole positions, as well as all these other anomalies that we're showing you. Another one that we cover is solar data, so I want to get through just a few of these very quickly, so you know, we can round up and obviously let you go out about your business as normal. So let's get on with it. So let's have a look at the solar data that we collect. So we've got our solar data here. You can very quickly go to this one page on our website, poleshiftnews.com, and have a look what the geomagnetic field's up to, whether it's quiet or there's a storm, or whether there are solar x-rays taking place, just by those two widgets at the top of the screen there. Not only that, we've got a lot of images which are updated every day. Some of them load up very quickly, others take a little bit of time. We've got the aurora forecast there, and you know, like I say, there's also solar information there down a bit further with charts, and obviously this one here looking away at the previous last 3 solar cycles as they've been diminishing, and we've got other charts and information there for you related just to the solar data. So another one stop for all your information on solar data. So another one that we cover are the sea ice extent maps. You can very quickly go on to Pole Shift News and have a look at charts like this, where you can see where the levels of sea ice in the Arctic Circle are at current times. You know, every day it's updated. If I just bring up the date for you, you can see it there at the very bottom there, 2023, the 3rd, which is March, and it's the 27th today. So this has been updated today already, and you can see where we are by the red line as opposed to how much Arctic sea ice there is there. The reason why this is important is because people like Al Gore, if you remember, said in 2015, I believe it was, that, you know, our kids by the time 2020 came would never see ice or polar bears and would never experience what snow looked like. And of course, you know, how wrong was that? Can you believe they give this guy the Nobel Peace Prize for that information? Anyhow, shocking. But you can come along to poleshiftnews.com and have a look at this anomaly or any others. And we also, I won't show it because I want to wrap the video up because it's getting on a little bit, but we also show the Schumann frequency. Some people say that their behavioural patterns are altered by the state of the Schumann frequency. This is a frequency which is generated by lightning strikes per second, and that's why we get the 7.8 hertz per second, which is just an indication that, you know, somewhere around the world there is 7.8 lightning strikes taking place at any given second. That's what generates the Schumann frequency, and sometimes we have more lightning strikes than others. I like to think of it as, you know, one way or another, you know, the surface or the atmosphere has got to discharge at some point, and that's what we're witnessing. But nevertheless, this is something that has been in the background for millions and millions of years, and, you know, we live with this in the background. And of course, when something that's been around for that long, you know, it must have an influence on not just human life but across all biodiversities. It must have some influence. I'll just, as a bit of trivial information, I'll just mention that on the moon landings, they actually played the frequency of the Schumann resonance in the shuttle as it was flying towards the moon. Can you believe? Because there was a fear that if human beings was not in the vicinity of that frequency or background noise, it might have an adverse effect. So they actually played it, can you believe, on the moon missions. So I'm going to end it here, guys, and just say, obviously you've seen exactly what we do and how we conduct ourselves as an observatory. We collect the information, we don't just talk about it. We're an active observatory that is to some degree monitoring these anomalies every 3 seconds and every 15 minutes, you know, with the magnetosphere and you know, the magnetic intensity detectors that we've got there in the field. So, you know, what we're asking is, maybe you might want to help support us, and if so, there is a link down there in the description, and you can do it in one of two ways. You can become one of our patrons, or you can just make a one-off donation. But what we're hoping is that you will, you know, choose to do one of those, because, you know, at the end of the day, some of the information that we collect and obviously talk about, it can be life-saving to some people. Things can be predicted when, you know, we use the scientific method in order to collect the data like we do, and we can make predictions on that data if we're regularly seeing predictive data like sometimes we do. And I believe that we have saved people's lives, we've saved people's life belongings in some degrees, and we have changed for the better some people's lives. If you want to be part of this in any way, you can be. You know, we welcome you. You know, we say, you know, we'll be pleased to have you help. And, you know, those two links down there in the description are ways in which you can do your little bit as well. Together, you know, we can achieve a lot more than what we are, even currently now. But even with what we are achieving now, it is, I think, amazing for a lot of reasons. You know, it's amazing that we've got our superstars that help us. It's amazing that we have, you know, people who are patrons who regularly support us, and it's amazing we have people like JBM and Jim, and you know, a lot of other people. I can't mention all of them, obviously, but you know, it's great that we have their help and support. So, you know, there's a link down there if you want to help. That's it in a nutshell. You know what, guys, the only other thing to say is you have an amazing day. Take care of your loved ones. I'll say what I usually do. As always, bye for now.